you have no idea of how you should do things, but the truth is no one has no idea, so you have to basically invent everything from the legal structure to the smart contract for your DAO or for your protocol, or how to deploy smart contracts and everything. You have to learn everything, and the thing is that in Web3, everything is very close to the code in the end, because a DAO, for example, is a piece of code. The product that you have is a piece of code and everything. So it's quite deeply technical. And even as a CEO, I had to so I come from a technical background, but I'm glad I am, because otherwise I think I would have struggled a lot following what the company is doing, because everything we do is code, right?
And math.
And math, yeah.
Blockchain, crypto, NFTs, DeFi, Metaverse, Web3 is literally eating the world, and community builders are the new leaders. Hi everyone, I'm Bilal El Alamy, co-founder of PyratzLabs, a startup studio fully dedicated to Web3 startups. In PyratzLand, I'll give the mic to Web3 builders, founders, and investors so that we can deep dive with them into what is truly about Web3 entrepreneurship. No conventional bullshit, only creativity, rebellion, and community-driven insights. Morpho. Hello there. Here today I'm with Paul Frambot, the CEO and co-founder of Morpho, the DeFi protocol that everybody talked about this summer. Maybe someone even added it on the dictionary. How are you, Paul, today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on the podcast, and I hope you enjoy the Morpho offices.
Definitely. Very excited. Very pleased to spend some time with you. I was very impressed by the whole work that you and your team have been doing the past weeks. I have a story for you. You know, like the first day I heard about you, like I had literally 2 VCs calling me one after the other, saying, "Wow, Bilal, I heard of a deal, people, CNRS, Telecom, Polytechnique, have you heard of something?" Like the VCs were completely FOMO'd. It was a long time I haven't seen people that FOMO'd on a project, so that's crazy what you've done, guys.
Yeah, glad people FOMO'd a little bit about it. We had a crazy fundraising indeed, and a lot of noise around it as well, but I think we'll have the chance to discuss it.
Yeah, definitely. So before we get into Morpho and what you guys stand for, let us talk a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit more about your childhood.
Yep, so I grew up in the countryside in Normandy, so really far away from anything. Was really not into I had a very slow life in the beginning, having fun with math and maybe a little bit of tech, but really I was not until I would say 13 years old, really a peaceful teenager life. And then when I was 14, I started getting more and more interested in entrepreneurship. At the time I had a funny YouTube channel, and even though I did not like creating content, I was just thinking of how I could grow, I would not say businesses, but projects in general. So at the time, for example, I contacted radios and had my YouTube channel advertised on radios, national radios, even though I did not have any content on it. And so, I had a couple of thousand subscribers thanks to those tricks. But in the end, it was not technical enough for me. So around when I was in high school, I started being more and more interested in computer science, and then distributed algorithms specifically, and consensus algorithms, and then Bitcoin. So that was back 2016 maybe, and back then really was pure technical interest at first. And in parallel, I started growing more and more interest for entrepreneurship in general. So when I left high school, I went for preparatory classes. So in France, those are 2 years where you basically supposed to do some hard work on math and theoretical stuff that are not so useful in practice, but are here to test people and and have them work as much as possible. And I really did not enjoy this during 2 years. So my first year of preparatory school, I decided to start a company. And during some time in this first year, I did not go to the classes and everything, and did my own thing, which after a year completely screwed up. It was not relevant at all. So I had to deal with my preparatory class and the company as well, which I decided to stop. And yeah, focused the second year of preparatory classes. At the time I did a memo on blockchains. So during this time you have to do a memo, and I did it on blockchain, and actually a specific DLT, so distributed ledger technology called IOTA. And the day I finished preparatory classes, back to entrepreneurship and back to blockchain. I had 3 years in Telecom Paris and Polytechnique, where I studied blockchain, and where I started many businesses, ideas that all did not work.
Until you do the biggest fundraising since Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, no, sure. But I think I did like maybe 3 or 4 different projects. Some of them ended up, working a little bit, but not sufficiently that I continue working on it. So I had projects with caritative streaming at first. Then it was about real estate and how to change some business model in real estate. And then thirdly, it was more about startup recruitment and how I can basically sell my friends from top schools to startups. And I had my small agency where I basically recommended all my friends and all my school to startups, and I get paid to do so.
So let's get back in this entrepreneurship mindset that you have, because it's from very young that you had this entrepreneurial mindset, trying to hack problems, fix issues, build companies, federate people around an idea. Where does it come from? Who were your how can I say who inspired you? Who was the person that was the most impactful on you? We all have someone, like the first person thinking of.
I don't think, to be honest, I have someone that really inspired me specifically. I think if I were to say something inspiring in my life, I would probably go with an anime that I've been watching when I was young, and I still watch today, which is One Piece.
Yeah, nice.
And it's a very childish yet so exciting anime where basically the goal is to achieve freedom and really I think I'm motivated by freedom in general, like to be as free as possible to do whatever I want to do. And it appears that entrepreneurship is probably one of the easiest roads to that goal, in my opinion. So when you look at the world today, if you want to be as free as possible, well, entrepreneurship is probably one of the most interesting paths.
It's a luxury, but which is very hard.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Let's dig quickly into Morpho. How would you define Morpho and its vision? What do you want it to bring to the world?
So, Morpho.
How did you came up with the idea in the first place?
Yep. So the idea is that I had been working on consensus algorithms and blockchains, so layer 1, for a long time. And slowly, so when Ethereum came out and started coding on the EVM and slowly went up the stack of blockchains. So starting with L1, then EVM and smart contracts and DeFi. And really, I was taking every single lesson on blockchain that existed in Paris. I took all the one from Polytechnique, Telecom Paris, INS, University, and CNAM as well. And in all of those lectures, I really often came across one specific professor called Vincent Danos, and very famous in France for his research in DeFi. And I came up, I started, chatting with him a little bit, and we started a think tank about DeFi. And basically, we had twice or thrice a week we would regroup and just think and talk about DeFi and what we can improve about it. So really, I had followed all the history of DeFi. I could see the inefficiencies of it because we've been modeling them, but also because we've been following a lot. And then we've been working on how can we solve those inefficiencies that we could see with our own eyes, but also through the math that we've been doing. And really, it was quite a natural approach. And the natural birth of Morpho is that it's a lending protocol, Morpho. And we just looked back at what was existing as lending protocols. So you have Aave, you have Compound. And it's very simple. You go to the Compound website, you have a very low lending APY, you have a very high borrowing APY. And it's not a fee that they take, it's an inefficiency due to various reasons. And we just look at that problem and say, hey, how can we crack that? And we found a way, and actually a beautiful way, and that is Morpho basically. So a lending protocol that is much more efficient than existing lending protocols, and that preserve everything you previously had in other lending protocols. So you have one Morpho for each lending protocol that is existing. So Morpho Aave for Aave, Morpho Compound for Compound, etc. And it's what we say, we call it in science a Pareto improvement. So it's exact same thing as the underlying protocol, but better, basically. So if you're a user of Aave, using Morpho Aave is strictly better. If you're a user of Compound, using Morpho Compound is strictly better. And since Compound and Aave represent billions, like at the moment, tens of billions of volume, it really clicked in the mind of VCs when we discussed with them and explained them how it was working. They were like, okay, why, as a user of Aave, wouldn't I move from Aave to Morpho Aave? And once they were convinced by that, it started the whole thing and everything.
And what would... why would Aave and Morpho want to improve the capital efficiency of the deposits?
You mean Aave itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good question.
They could do like Aave2 or like Curve V2, Curve V3, Uniswap, V2, V3.
Yeah, sure. So here is the problem. Aave is a liquidity protocol which has a very nice feature, which is you can withdraw at any time and you can borrow at any time. And this feature is only possible because they have a ton of idle liquidity in their smart contract. So they have billions that is not working, that is inefficient. And this is where the inefficiency comes from. So they have billions in the smart contract that is unused. And this is not a bug, this is a feature. And actually the reason why you have such a spread between the lending and the borrowing rate is that Aave itself has put the spread such that you don't have so much borrowers and you have many lenders. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incentivized to have a bunch of idle liquidity to remain liquid. And so Morpho is not taking care, is not considering liquidity of the protocol, of the Morpho protocol itself, because it's relying on the Aave liquidity itself.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is that Morpho is going to have is not considering this spread. So if it's 1% to lend on Aave and 3% to borrow, on Morpho it's going to be 2% for lenders and borrowers. And the problem with that is that at first glance you could say, hey, I'm lending $100 at 2%, and so someone is borrowing my $100 at 2%. So once it's borrowed, the money is not here, right? It's gone. And really, the problem here is that it's very capital efficient, but it's illiquid, because as a lender, if I want to withdraw, well, my money is gone, right?
Yeah.
So I can't. But the magic of Morpho is that it sits on top of Aave, so it's going to be able to use, through complex mechanisms, the Aave liquidity in order for me to withdraw at any time. So Morpho is an improvement.
Yet having the optimization
Yes,
in the capital
and this is the very cool
Okay.
thing.
Amazing.
But this is not something Aave can do internally because it's very tangential to the purpose of Aave. Aave is being a liquid protocol. It's a liquidity protocol. They do not even call themselves a lending
So
protocol.
the basic hypotheses are fundamentally different.
Yes, and yet Morpho is the exact same product. So it's a very weird relationship between Aave and Morpho, but very interesting.
Interesting. So you appears to be kind of an aggregator that, on top of it, optimize the liquidity of
the capital efficiency. Yeah. So if you use Morpho Aave, you'll have an advantage compared to Aave users in terms of efficiency, and out of it you get better rates. And you preserve the liquidity of your loan, so you can withdraw at any time, you can borrow at any time, and you can borrow billions if you want to right now on Morpho. So that's very cool. And you preserve the same also risk guarantees, so same liquidation parameters and everything.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit more about the launch of Morpho? You had a lot of expectations, and you guys definitely succeeded them. So tell us more. How did you find 150 million liquidity in 3 weeks? You are aggregating on billions of dollars of deposits, and how did you make sure that there were no risk in terms of cybersecurity? How did you felt before the launch?
So I would separate two parts. So like the product building before the launch, and then the timing of the launch and the logic we had at the moment. So before launching, we wanted to make sure that everything was secure, such that we could put the company's money into it, which we did. When you think of a DeFi protocol where you put your own money into it, you want to feel very comfortable with it. So we've made everything in such a way that we feel comfortable with the security of the protocol. It's a bit like in China, you have those mines, and you had so many accidents that the Chinese government has decided to put the management offices below the mines. Okay. So here it's a bit the same thing. We have all the skin in the game in Morpho, so we make sure everything is going right. And to do so, we've done more than 12 audits on the code of Morpho, which is probably the biggest number of audits you've ever seen this year on the lending protocol. Oh, even Aave and Compound don't do that much of it on that code. Something also that we do that nobody does, that we do formal proving. So the protocol is formalized mathematically. It is proven mathematically before being implemented. So we have research.
But using another programming language, right?
No, so we do manual formal proving and automatic formal proving. So manual formal proving is basically you write a pseudocode with formal specification, and you prove invariance from the pseudocode mathematically. So we've been working on a yellow paper that is 70 pages long approximately, in which we formalize the protocol, the pseudocode, and prove the correctness.
But you prove it using Solidity code?
No, pseudocode. We have pseudocode, which is written in mathematical language. We prove that. We prove the correctness of the code, but we also prove the Pareto improvement. So we prove that Morpho is actually better than an existing protocol. And we also prove that existing protocols are not a Nash equilibrium, which means basically that they're not the right model. And that another model will thrive in the long term. And which is a very interesting result. But anyway, and then from this pseudocode, we implement it in Solidity. So basically, in Morpho, we separate research from Solidity. The research team is independent from the Solidity team, and is going to design the mechanisms, formalize the mechanisms, and prove them. And then the Solidity guys take the pseudocode, they implement it, secure it, test it, etc. Audit it, of course. As I said, we've done more than 5 audits.
So you make sure that the logic beforehand is perfect.
Yes.
And then you implement it.
Yes,
great.
And then we have also automatic formal proving. So we use another language that is...
Called Michococ? You use Michococ?
Yes, so we could have used Coq, but we use Certora. Which is a tool for smart contracts specifically.
Interesting.
And, so we have our internal formal provers in Morpho that have PhD in formal proving, by the way.
Nice. I'm looking for some. I've been doing a little bit like 2 years ago of that. I've done like 4 tutorials on formal verifications. Wow.
It's quite hard to do, yes. And
but it's really fun.
Yes, it's good fun. I like it a lot too. So we're doing manual and automatic form approving, of course, testing, fuzzing. Like we have tools that are very famous, like Slither and everything. And then you have audits, you have immunified bounties, we do front-end audits as well. So once you have all this, really you feel comfortable with your code, and you know that there isn't going to be any problems with that. And then we felt comfortable for the launch, and even without considering any growth consideration, for the launch we really wanted to have all this before, and we were really putting aside anything that was growth related or timing related and everything. And so only once we have this, we decided to time the launch and everything. And really the timing was bad because it was a bear market, like really a harsh bear market at the time. I think when we launched, ETH was at $800 or something like that.
It was like mid-June, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, and end of May was like the big crisis.
Yeah.
in the whole market, basically.
So it was really not the best time to launch, because you can see that like DeFi, a huge correlation between the TVL of DeFi protocols and the market conditions, obviously. And so we launched around in a bear market, and yet we had progressively more and more TVL, and I would say the main reasons is that we know our users very well, and we are like back channeling with them. And
who are they?
So it's very simple.
Where did you find them?
Morpho is an improvement of Compound, so you go directly to Compound users and you explain them. It's an educational problem. Once you explain them the mechanism, they just switch because they understand that it's better. And so what I did is that I'm very bad at business development. So what I did is during the fundraising, I looked on chain at what are the top Aave users or the top Compound users. I use Nansen, a tool that is labeling transactions. So I fetched on chain the 100 biggest Compound and Aave users, used Nansen to know approximately who they were, try to reach out to them, or use my investors to reach out to them and offer them to take part in the round. So I had the time to pitch them the story about Morpho so that they understand what it's all about. And so the reason why Morpho's fundraising has more than 80 different investors is because 60 of them are Compound and Aave users. And those are the ones progressively switching and increasing the TVL of Morpho. I would say at the moment they account for 60 million of the TVL, and it's a growing number every day because they go slowly but surely adding some liquidity. So yeah, that's basically the way we grew. I mean, I would say like natural growth, and then
being strategic every step of the way.
Yeah. And then of course you have liquidity mining that helps a lot. So we have added token incentives that are non-transferable token incentives. But yeah, people are interested in it, and
what do you mean non-transferable token incentive? What they can cash them out, or
no, it's not transferable. So when you farm the token, you get a token that is not transferable yet.
Okay.
So there is no price because there is no.
I remember. Yeah. Okay.
So I can pitch it very quickly, but the idea is that when you do a token launch, there's a lot of problems because you're the one deciding if it's a public sale. You can decide sometimes the launch price. There's a lot of decisions that you don't really want to take and you prefer the community taking. So one solution that we have had to this is basically making the token non-transferable, distribute it to the community such that the community has the power, and then the community will decide on when to launch the token by making it transferable, and if it should be a public sale for the DAO, everything. So that's the idea basically behind it. And I would recommend, especially in bear market conditions, any project to do that. It's open source, so anybody can check out and replicate it.
There is something that was very, very, very interesting in your white paper. So on top of obviously the mathematical approach, which makes totally sense, and you guys who seems pretty fun to deliver. What surprises me and what I really liked is the lucidity of your white paper towards the governance and the decentralization of the protocol. I'm a very pragmatic guy, so I would have done something similar, but I'm so happy that at least someone in the market didn't bullshit it completely and admitted what he doesn't know and just shared it with the others so that we can all take the right decision at the right time, because there's no point of taking it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of things that Morpho Labs, so Morpho Labs is the company I run, and that is working for Morpho. But there's a lot of things that we're not good at, and we're looking for the community to bring answers, or external companies to bring answers to Morpho instead of us. Mm. So Morpho Labs is really one contributor among others for the Morpho protocol. We've discussed in the beginning about CNRS researchers and everything. They have their company, they're working for Morpho as well, but they're not affiliated with Morpho Labs, right? And so in the end, a DAO really to me is a public good, which offers a financial, so a DAO in the context of DeFi, it's a public good that offers a financial primitive. So in the case of Morpho, it's lending and borrowing, and it's non-lucrative. Yet around it, you have service companies that are working for the public good, which is accumulating a fee in its treasury. So it's a public good, it has non-profit goal, yet the DAO knows that the algorithm must be, upgraded with time, otherwise it will die. So it accumulates a fee in order to survive, and this fee goes into a treasury, and this treasury pays contributors around the world, and Morpho Labs is at the moment the biggest one. And the very cool thing about it, and just wanted to emphasize it a little bit, is that in DeFi, we're really working toward improving a common good rather than operating a financial service, which is amazing in my personal opinion. So in traditional finance, you get paid because you operate a financial service. In DeFi, you get paid because you improve a common good, which is very exciting to me.
Definitely. So I wanted to... So two things that are two more things before we get to the last chapter. You guys have been doing quite a bold move, trying to shift from like a classical company approach that you had in the beginning to a DAO approach, and a DAO which is not a foundation and which is not outside of friends. Can you explain the reasons and?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to think of the way Morpho is organized with three different kinds of entities. So you have the company, Morpho Labs, you have the association, Morpho Association, and you have the DAO, which is a piece of code. And obviously, the company is a French regulated entity. The association is also a French entity, but the DAO is a piece of code, so there is no regulation around it. And the way it works is the following. So Morpho Labs is a software and development company. So we don't operate a financial service. We have no infrastructure. The only thing we do is math and computing and writing pseudocode and implementing it. And basically, Morpho Labs is working either for the association or for the DAO directly. And so the funny thing about it is that the French regulated entity has one client, and this client is the algorithm itself that the company built initially. So it's a funny way of thinking of DAOs and companies, but really it's a great way to approach legal setups, because at the moment the usual setup is I'm going offshore to create an entity or wrapper for my DAO, and I'm going to pay that company offshore and everything. But I have personal opinions on that, and the main reason is that a lot of people are using the fact that there is a blurred jurisdiction around DAOs to pretend that they are legitimate going offshore. But in the end, there are other advantages on going offshore that are financial, for example, advantages that are sometimes the main reasons why people are leaving. And it's not a juridical problem, it's more a financial problem, but it's hidden by the juridical one. So yeah, I think in France we had everything we needed. We have we're just a software development company, then we have the same regime as another software development company. Of course, you have regulations that are a bit annoying around distribution of tokens, for example. So it's hard to navigate with all this. so we found ways and everything, and we are closely in touch with AMF, French Treasury, Bercy, etc. We do a lot of presentation there as well, and it's really a good mood, I think. They are talking to us and they want to know how to do it right, I mean, in terms of regulation. And I really prefer that way. We feel much more comfortable this way. And to be honest, it's also quite efficient as well in terms of if you do the things right in terms of finance. So really, I had no real interest in moving out of France for this specific subject.
No, I agree with you. I mean, we have everything we need here. People try to over-engineer mostly, but like we have the French Public Investment Bank, we have all the subvention grants that is given, all the advantages of
for research specifically. So we're a research company, so we have like what we call in France Crédit d'impôt recherche, which is a hub for French companies that are doing research, and that is very interesting for anyone that is doing research and development. So really I had no point in moving out of France, except that maybe it's more simple in terms of paperwork, but that was not enough for us. So we decided to stay. And also, most of the team comes from an academic background, and we've been working closely in the past in universities and everything. So we did not feel comfortable leaving.
No, definitely. I understand. What did you find hard being a founder in Web3?
So there is no example. So there are examples, but you have to learn to do everything, like about DAO, for example, from the jurisdiction perspective, you have no idea how you should do things, but the truth is no one has no idea, so you have to basically invent everything from the legal structure to the smart contract for your DAO or for your protocol, or how to deploy smart contracts and everything. You have to learn everything, and the thing is that in Web3, everything is very close to the code in the end, because a DAO, for example, is a piece of code. The product that you have is a piece of code and everything. So it's quite deeply technical. And even as a CEO, I had to so I come from a technical background, but I'm glad I am, because otherwise I think I would have struggled a lot following what the company is doing, because everything we do is code, right?
And math.
And math, yeah. But yeah, I would say the most difficult part is that we don't have jurisdiction for DeFi at the moment. It's being worked out, but it will take long until then. And yeah, so we had to do everything on our own, I would say. But otherwise, I think it's pretty, you have all those entrepreneurship problems that any entrepreneurs would have, like recruitment and growth and everything. So yeah, but that part is like classical.
So you mentioned the think tank that you had at school. Can you tell us a little bit more, and how was the learning curve of DeFi for you, for your teammates?
I think it's easy to think that we understand the concepts without understanding them deeply. And so at first I was like, hey, Uniswap, it's simple, it's just an AMM, you have liquidity providers and the price is determined by the ratio between asset A and asset B. And then you look deeper into it and it's much more complex than what it seems. So I think there is different levels of understanding, and to reach level 1 it's pretty fast, to be honest. But then to go from I would say a deep, from a high level understanding to a very low level understanding, it can take long. We're speaking in 6 months if you go full time on it, in my opinion. Maybe a bit less, but the idea is that you have so many things to consider to really understand what the DeFi protocol is about, whether it's about oracles that you need to understand, whether it's about Solidity code, or just the mechanism designs behind it. It can take very long to really be senior in the subject. And I would say you can separate the different subjects. Like for example, for me, I started with mechanism design without really coding in Solidity. So I was really thinking, about Uniswap and Compound and Aave, but I did not know how to code good Solidity code, for example. But I did not need it to. So yeah, I would say that the learning curve, depending on what you want to do, can be quite simple if you're into if you just want a high level understanding. But obviously, if you want to really code the thing without any bugs, then it can take much longer than that because you have so many things to consider and also systemic risk and everything.
Yeah, I often say that you need like 3 to 6 months to be fully operational on a specific subject. Obviously, everything you've done is amazing so far, but I know like the right entrepreneur, it's never perfect enough for them. So is there something you would do differently?
You mean from what I've done in the past?
Yeah, from what you've done since inception of the company, for example, or maybe before, like the whole entrepreneurial journey that led you to Morpho.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a year. So Morpho, the company has 1 year and 3 weeks maybe. So one thing was probably around the way I tackle recruitment, for example. It was a subject that I did not know a thing about, and it's really a science in itself. And so I had very low experience around it, and I lost a lot of time just, trying to figure out a way to recruit people and test them and also so that part I would definitely roll back and do things differently. Even though I absolutely love the people that are working at PyratzLabs, I think we could have reached to the same number of people a bit sooner than what we currently have. And by the way, we're recruiting at the moment. So if anyone is interested in technical or marketing role, we have open positions. But I would say that would be the main thing. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with what we've done so far. Of course, we could have gone faster, but then faster means probably security trade-offs that we're not going to take. But yeah, recruitment is probably the most important part where I'm not satisfied. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Is there some daily routines you give to yourself in order to be who you are?
Yeah, I would say that I have a very accurate management of my notification system.
Okay.
So everything is set such that, so in my, computer and phone and everything is set such that if I have a notification, this is something I have to do. So there is no extra notification that I don't care about, or there is no things that I have to do without notification. And so really, when I look at my computer, I have 20 mails and 30 Telegram chats or something like that. I know that all of those things are the things that I have to tackle, and I just shoot them one by one and go as fast as possible. And sometimes it's endless, and it's actually always endless. But I would say it helped me a lot. Calendly also is a tool that I like. For example, I have so many shortcuts on my computer that helps me, go faster. And just shooting my Calendly fast, I have a shortcut to shoot my Calendly. It's saving me so much time, I think. So it's a simple thing, but I would advise any entrepreneur to do that. We have a lot of a big internal stack to manage everything automatically. So in Morpho, everything is done automatically, payroll, everything. So of course we have the famous tools that anyone is using at the moment, like Conto, Payfit, and everything in France. That is the
startup suite.
The toolbox for a startup. But we also have a ton of bots internally, and everything that we can automate, we automate it. And so it's earning so much time in the end. And so we have good processes, and it's saving us a lot of time. And this is why we're quite, a small team in the end.
What's the media, the person, the Twitter account, the newsletter that you would recommend, that you follow, that you find?
So from a DeFi perspective, I like the Paradigm guys on Twitter. They tell interesting stories about whether it's smart contracts or mechanism design. Now, I would say like Dan Robinson, Transmissions 11 always have something interesting to say in general, but I would say just following the projects themselves, like following on Twitter the different interesting DeFi primitives like Compound, Aave, Uniswap, etc. Is also a good source of information, I would say. It's quite simple, but this is the way I do it and it works. So.
Okay, thanks. What's the next milestones of Morpho?
So
what do you think Morpho is in like 5 years?
Oh, in 5 years?
Like the next milestones, and
okay, so
what do you expect to be in 5 years?
So the vision for Morpho is that Morpho is here to make efficient lending a common good, such that anyone in the future that wants to lend or borrow, whatever the asset, whatever the currency, whatever, just if you want to lend and borrow, under the hood, it's going to be Morpho operating that operation in a very transparent and efficient way. And so if you see 20 years from now, Morpho would be like the operating system of credit. You could think of it this way. And it's public, it's open source, and anyone can use it. So that would be the vision, I would say long-term vision. But to get there's a long way to go, obviously. And the first step is DeFi. And how do you take Morpho to being a 150 million protocol to a protocol that is managing billions in liquidity. So obviously the goal for us is to reach 1 billion liquidity, which is something I think we can do easily.
By the end of the year?
By the end of the year, yes. And so that would be the goal for us. I would say the short-term goal. But then it's not about DeFi, right? So it's about, replacing traditional finance. DeFi has the potential to be much more efficient than what we have currently in traditional finance. And I'll explain that very, very simply. You have 50,000 banks and credit unions in the world, and they all do the same thing. Like they all have their algorithms that they do internally, that they keep private. So they have their development team, their audit firms, their buildings, marketing team, and everything. DeFi, it's one algorithm for each DeFi primitive. So theoretically, it's 50,000 times cheaper than traditional finance to operate. And so I think that's the thing that is lacking at the moment in DeFi is efficient algorithms that are competitive with traditional finance. But once you have algorithms that are as efficient as traditional finance, then the infrastructure cost reduction of DeFi is going to play out. And then you have what I call the DeFi product market fit, which is people are switching over from traditional finance to DeFi, which they don't at the moment. Especially in lending, like Aave is offering 0.2% on USDC. Who cares about 0.2%? It's not interesting compared to traditional finance rates. So I think once we have the right mechanism designs for DeFi that are sufficiently good to have good rates, native rates, I'm not speaking of like liquidity mining and everything, there will be this turning point where traditional finance is going to be onboarded into DeFi because it's natively better on top of being decentralized. And this will be the second goal for us, I would say, in the midterm, is that, okay, Morpho is providing additional efficiency. Let's take this efficiency to the point where it's competitive with traditional finance. And that would be next year and the year after, I would expect.
All right. It was very passionating. Really loved the chat. I will finish just with one question. What are your personal objectives for 2022, 2023?
So my personal objectives are very simple. I want to be as useful as I can in general. So I don't have money in mind. I just have, it's a very, lame sentence, but making a world a better place, whatever that means, right? It's just, I want to bring something to the world in making it as big as I can so that, people use it and it's better for them. So Morpho is improving current state of DeFi. So users are happier because they get better rates, for example. And really, my personal goal is that Morpho is going to solve real-world problems in the long terms and bringing more and more utility to the world in general. So it's a very generic sentence, but that's actually true. So yeah, that's my personal goal. And for 2022 and 2023 specifically, that would be doing it through the improvement of Morpho and onboarding as many users as possible on the platform.
So I totally agree with what you're saying, but where would you put the threshold in which you would consider being a success factor?
Okay, you mean what
That's
is
the big
like?
question.
Let's
bring something to the world. Yes, but
you mean quantify it?
Yeah, how would you quantify it to say, okay, this is the key success factor I wanted to reach.
Yeah.
I brought something to the world.
Yeah. Okay. So the key success factor is and concretely in the case of Morpho would be at the moment many financial services are the private playground of many. Actually few specific users. And the goal is to open that to the world. And as soon as I would be able to offer, through Morpho, the most accessible, interesting rates to any users, whether you're a New York Stock Exchange trader or a grandmother in whatever country, you should be able to access that equally if you're equally active or equally passive, because of course an active user would be able to have more interesting rates. But so I would say that for me, decentralizing the credit world is a great objective. And credit is such a huge market, probably one of the biggest markets in the planet, and also one of the most regulated and powerful. And
monopolistic.
And very, very, very monopolistic. So if you succeed in decentralizing this, I think it's a huge achievement for the world in general. So that would be the objective, personal objective for me.
All right. I will support you on that. Thank you very much, Paul. It was a real pleasure to have this chat.
Yeah,
Thank
likewise.
you again for the invitation in your office. I wish you nothing but the best for Morpho.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you want to join our community, check our Discord link in the show notes. We have some amazing people in there who are in the community, who support each other. It's a safe space for Web3 builders if you want to gather there too. This podcast is a production of PyratzLabs. We'll catch you in the next session.